Chapter 13. Last Breath. Lucas could hear nothing but the blood pumping in his ears, the adrenaline coursing through his body. He thought of Ebony as he turned and glanced behind him to the drop where Crystal had fallen seconds before, but she was nowhere to be seen. And when Lucas faced ahead again, Lagoon, too, was gone. Indigo was losing his mind. He had fallen to his knees, laughing hysterically in panic and despair.
"Did you see that?" he cried. "Even with all of us, we're no match."
"Indigo!" Siren screamed, shaking him violently.
"Get a hold of yourself!"
Venom calmly turned to the aberrant that stood behind him, hissing at it. The beast snarled back, then turned tail and ran, as fast as it could, away and to places unknown. Lucas took a step back towards the edge.
"Lucas?"
He fell, as Crystal had done, spreading his wings and soaring away, ignoring his brother as he called after him. "Lucas!" Only one thought rested in Lucas's mind, one fear, and that was for Ebony. They would surely be coming for her next. He had to reach her before they did. He found Ebony, with Lorelei, Diz, Cheyenne, and Kyle. Drake was nowhere to be seen. The moment he landed, Ebony ran to him and embraced him.
"Lucas!" she cried, sobbing into his shoulder. "Crystal is dead."
"I know," he replied calmly. She looked up at him. Her large, bright pink eyes, so beautiful and so sad, began to shimmer.
"I felt her fear," Ebony whispered. "She was so afraid."
"Ebony," he told her, grasping her firmly by the shoulders, "I have to get you out of here. We have to escape."
"Oh, Lucas."
Tears began to roll down her cheeks. She could no longer hold them back.
"There is nowhere I can run now that they won't follow," Ebony cried. "I cannot leave this town. I'm trapped here because of the magic all the Elder Guardians put here in order to trap her."
"I have to try," Lucas pleaded. Unconsciously, in his desperation, he dug his nails deeper into her shoulder, but she did not flinch.
"But you'll put yourself in danger."
"I don't care," Lucas shot back defiantly. "I just can't. I can't." He gritted his teeth, eyes beginning to shine. Ebony raised her hands towards him, lifting his chin up. She stood on her tiptoes to reach him, kissing him deeply. Lucas, in his shock, did not resist. He knotted his fingers around her body, spreading his wings. Rising upwards, he flew away with her. Back on the ground, Cheyenne uncrossed her arms. Taking a slow and steady breath, she silently turned and strode away.
"Lucas,"
Ebony begged, as she squirmed in his arms.
"Lucas, put me down."
"I have to get you out of here," he said back to her, holding her tightly so that she would not fall.
"I can't," she whined. "I can't leave the town. Please put me down."
Lucas began to drop closer to the ground, tilting his wings to slow their descent. However, completely unknown to him, his path was being followed by a creature on foot. Lucas landed in a quiet alley and let go of Ebony.
"You're so strong," she said to him. "I wish I was like you."
"I'm not strong," Lucas answered with remorse. "I am weak. So weak. I failed to protect my brother in the past. I failed to protect Crystal. I failed even to protect you." Lucas cast his mind back, thinking of Lagoon. That man who killed Crystal. He was so powerful. He was able to stand against all of us with only the slightest effort. His eyes glazed over then as he thought of Lagoon and his incredible power.
"I want to be like that someday. I want to be powerful like him. If I were, then maybe I could have done something."
Ebony lifted her hand, touching the side of his face tenderly.
"It's not your fault that I am trapped here, Lucas. It's the fault of those that hunt me."
"If we could try to escape this town," Lucas urged. "I can't." Ebony shook her head. "I cannot cross the net that surrounds this town. It would hurt me. I am afraid that if I do somehow manage to cross it, it would kill me." She lifted her head up towards the heavens.
"It is there," she whispered. "Directly above us, right before my eyes. I can see it."
"I see nothing," Lucas said, glancing up. Ebony bowed her head.
I just wanted to.
She drew a deep breath, struggling to speak now, as if her throat was tightening.
I just wanted to thank you,
she said at last, meeting his gaze.
For everything you've done for her. For everything you've done for me.
She bit her lip, so hard that it began to bleed.
Thank you,
she whispered with a smile.
No matter what happens from now on, I want you to know that I regret nothing.
She faced him directly now, standing tall. Suddenly she was not afraid.
I love you, Lucas.
His heart stopped in his chest, and he stood there before her utterly still. Ebony stared back at him, her unnatural bright pink eyes so different to the ones he had first known. Before he could speak, Lucas noticed movement over Ebony's shoulder. A tall beast with sleek black fur lunged at him from the shadows of a narrow alley beside them. Lucas pushed Ebony aside, and Crias barreled into him, knocking him over. Lucas fought desperately with the beast atop of him. Claws and teeth and wings were flailing everywhere. Lucas's right wing flew up and was caught in the mouth of the beast. Lucas screamed in pain as the beast Crias locked his jaws, biting down and jerking and twisting back and forth. Agonizing seconds later, his wing detached, torn off at the joint. Crias scuttled back, holding the broken piece of the wing in his jaw and cackling hysterically. Transforming into his human self, he raised the wing triumphantly in both hands above his head. "This is for you, Lee!" he howled. "This is for you!" Lucas fell back, staring up at the sky as the clouds passed gracefully overhead, oblivious to the pain and suffering that was happening below them. Reefed in sweat, Lucas was shaking and weak. Gasping in shock, he tried to sit up, propping himself up on an elbow. Ebony was over him in an instant, kneeling next to him. She was beside herself, screaming and crying over his injury. They had not but the briefest of moments together when Ebony's head snapped back and something shot past Lucas. His breath caught in his throat, unsure for a moment what had just happened. And then he looked down. A lance-like weapon protruded from Ebony's chest and ran mere inches away from Lucas's shoulder and cheek. It was stuck in the ground, embedded in the tarmac behind him.
"Ebony!"
Ebony gasped for breath. Blood spurted from the hole in her chest. As the lance was pulled sharply back out of her, she fell forwards onto Lucas. He felt her dead weight upon him as he held her there with one arm, still propped up on the other.
"Lucas,"
she pleaded. Her voice was weak and fading. She began to shiver.
"I'm so cold."
"Please," he begged.
"Please don't go. Please don't die."
As he spoke the words, he felt disgusted at himself for resorting to begging, for sounded so weak.
"Please!"
Her body sagged, and she closed her bright pink eyes for the last time. A shining light grew from her body, engulfed her whole torso, and growing brighter. Lucas squinted, turning his head away when he could no longer tolerate the brightness of the light, as it became unbearably strong. The weight of her body lifted from his chest, and when the light retreated, Ebony was gone. Upon his chest, where she had lay, there was a stone. It was startling pink in colour, with cut edges and large enough to sit in the palm of a hand. Ebony was gone. This was all that was left of her. A hand reached down and picked up the stone. The master walked away from him calmly, as if nothing had happened, his heavy boots thudding on the tarmac. He walked past Crias, still holding the severed part of the wing, and towards Lagoon, who waited at the end of the alley.
"You monster!"
Lucas screamed in despair, rising to his feet. The master dropped the stone into Lagoon's open hand, turning and standing beside him. Lagoon's face was calm and emotionless.
"To kill innocent people! How could you take away the lives of those who cannot defend themselves? All for the sake of power? For your own selfish reasons?"
"Power," Lagoon replied smoothly, "is possibility." Crias began to cackle again. His voice continued on until it bore into Lucas's skull, and still he did not stop. Lucas snapped. All the torment and grief and anger came crashing down on him, a dam whose wall had finally been breached. The power it had been holding back now unleashed its fury. He screamed in rage, charging forwards and leaping upon Crias. He grabbed his face, digging his nails into his skin and baring his teeth in savagery. Crias fell backwards onto the tarmac. laughing and repeating the name of the woman he had loved over and over, as Lucas smashed his skull again and again against the concrete. Neither the master nor Lagoon reacted, not until after Criaz was dead, and Lucas was gasping and shaking from anger. Flecks of blood dotted his face as he sat back, glaring with hatred and loathing at Logan. "Power changes people," Lagoon told Lucas as he sat upon the dead body of Criaz. "You never know. One day, you could be like me." "I'll never be like you," Lucas snarled, pure hatred and venom filling his soul. He felt only revulsion and disgust. "Ebony would have come to love you in time," Lagoon informed him solemnly, "had I not played with her heart." "What?" Lucas gasped, taken aback. His emotions let go of the hate and swiftly turned to heartache and uncertainty. But Lagoon would not elaborate further. He walked away, ignoring Lucas as he called after him. The master followed Lagoon, and the two vanished. Lucas had never cried so much before in his life. Disgusted at himself at what he had done, and suffering from the trauma of losing Ebony so violently, he began to slip into shock. Tears streamed from his eyes. He covered his face, as if wanting to hide from the world, to hide from its cruelties and torment. Where was the justice? Where were those that were supposed to protect the weak, the vulnerable, the innocent? Reuben found him some time later. Lucas remembered him calling out his name, grabbing him by the shoulders and shaking him, but Lucas did not respond.